We will reconvene this meeting at this point in time, and our next section, next department to hear from is Tourism and Cultural Affairs. We have allotted, let me find this on here, don't want to misspeak it. We have allotted 45 minutes for this presentation, and I'd like to remind our presenters that we're figuring about half time for presentation and half time for questions and answers. And we have found throughout the last day and a half that this group has a number of questions. They're very inquisitive people, and they want to dig into some of those details. And so I am going to think that we probably will have some really good questions. So that sounds like a great thing. So Ms. Cowan, we will begin with you. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much, Chair Parks. I'm Danielle Cowan. I'm the Executive Director for Tourism for Clackamas County. We're branded as Oregon's Mount Hood Territory. And with me on my left is our TDC Board Member Kirk Mauser. And he's here, in the last few years, has been sitting up here with me as a support and also as a representative of the board, as well as having worked very closely with the arts. We also have today Cheryl Snow, who is the Executive Director of the Arts and Cultural Alliances, and with her Kevin Yell, who is now the, what is his chair? Board chair.
Chair of the Arts Alliance.
I wasn't sure. Some are presidents, some are not. So. And we're here today to present our budget and to take your questions and try to address them as best we can. Before we get started, I did want to note this will be the last time that Kirk gets to sit with me up here because this is his last year on the board. I want to thank him very much for all of his service and appreciate all that you've done. So anyway, just want to note that for the budget committee who have seen Kirk over the last few years. So.
I understand you're retiring, right, Cheryl?
Yes, this is true.
Yeah.
So this could be your last time, too.
It will be my last.
That's right. I should have mentioned that. But I don't want to.
Too many county people are retiring.
So who is your replacement?
We don't know.
In process.
In process.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
right,
Ms.
so
Cowan, thank you.
I believe that all of you have had an opportunity to look at our materials. We have a kind of a brief overview that is a higher flight over the top than what you have in your materials, so feel free to ask questions if we don't dive deep enough in this.
Okay, and generally we've been waiting until after the conclusion of the presentation and then taking the questions. You may see people put their card up, but we'll call on them after the presentation, so thank you.
Sounds perfect. And just so you know, in the structure of what we're going to do, I'm going to cover the tourism budget part and then turn it over to Cheryl for the arts and culture, which is really the general fund part that you guys have a lot of engagement in traditionally. So,
Thank you.
as I noted for Clackamas County, we are branded as Oregon's Mount Hood Territory. Sorry, mine is over here. And we're a destination marketing organization, which means that we're a little different than most county government operations that you see. We collect the TRT. We don't collect it, actually, the county does, and they disperse it to us for expenditures in tourism, marketing, development, and promotion. And I might say welcome to Commissioner Schrader. She serves as our liaison and on the two boards that are before you today. So point that out. We're put in place by a voter-approved ordinance in 1992 that taxed hotel lodging properties 6% on their take, and that money is what's used to distribute to us. And 98% of that fund goes back to the tourism department for expenditures, with the caveat. One caveat is that about $500,000 is taken out and given to the fair for fair purposes right off the top. And the 2% goes back to the county for collection purposes. So the rest comes to us. Let's see, anything else on there? We're guided by a master plan, and that can be found. We did bring a copy. It's not in your materials if you'd like it. It's really just a two-pager. And then we also do a 5-year strategic plan, and we just redid that this past year, and it is part of what guides the work that we do. The 5-year plan really implements the broader master plan, and then each year we also produce, I believe it's also in your materials, an annual business plan So these are the kinds of materials and reporting, et cetera, I'm planning that's a little bit different probably than other county departments. And this guides our work. The Tourism Board are 9 members who are appointed by the Board of County Commissioners, generally to 3-year terms. And Kirk is termed out, so that's why he's going to be leaving us. And they guide the work that we do and approve the business plan as well as the budget that we perform from each year. And so today we're here to go over those and to share those with you. Let's see, moving along, if I can get this little guy to go. These are really straight from our plan. I don't really need to read them to you, but we do invest the tourism tax. We try to get people to spend the night. That's our main key goal, because if they spend the night, that means we get lodging taxes from those that support the work that we do and the communities and the businesses that we do that with. And we try to inspire people to travel here, to want to seek out the adventures that we have and stay in the places that we have, eat in our restaurants, shop in our stores, buy our little knickknacks and art and goods. And so that is the work that we do to inspire and promote. And then we also work in partnership with a lot of different agencies, including federal agencies, with business partners, with intergovernment, outer government, the state, national, international. So our work is quite broad, even though we're a pretty small team. We primarily do our work within 3 pillars of tourism, which has been established in the county for probably since the beginning of this ordinance. The 3 areas that we focus on are outdoor recreation, which is really our big money maker. Anybody who steps outside can kind of understand that in Clackamas County, why we're so popular for that. And then the other one is agritourism. Again, not a big surprise with all our farms and so forth. And in today's economy and today's traveler, they want to have those kinds of experiences, and so we have a lot of those to offer. And that also includes our wineries and breweries, et cetera. So it's not just about the farm animals or the flowers, it's about a lot of things. And then we have the arts and culture. And arts and culture, Cheryl's team provides most of those services as far as what relates to tourism. We work with her on those, but and the cultural scene is quite broad, which includes heritage, and we work a great deal with our heritage organizations as well. Let's see. Our vision, we want to be the leader and the sustainer, and we do a good job in this county. We have had very effective marketing. We have a very effective team, well-known, celebrated sort of team that has really accomplished a lot with its resources. And these are the guiding principles that we have in our master plan from that have been approved by the Board of County Commissioners and by our boards, and that we want to be this. The one thing that we added this year that has not been in ours before is the sustainable tourism, because as we grow in popularity, so do some of our assets. And so some of our assets might get overrun, let's say a hiking trail or something like that. And we want to help people to understand how better to be a partner with us in our keeping our environment as pristine as possible, and then with our partners on how they can act and be sustainable in their work. And it also means sustainable funding. It also means sustainable programming. So sustainability is the issue that has been included in our master plan that wasn't there previously, that we hope we'll be able to get our arms around and really understand it in the tourism industry, which is a relatively new focus in a lot of our work, not in ours in particular, but in tourism in general. And the effective use of resources and building those public and private partnerships that I mentioned. So how are we structured? This is kind of a little different than sort of maybe what you've seen before. But it's changed a little bit this past year or two because Travel Oregon, which is the state agency, has additional funding and new rules that were passed in the 2016 session, I believe it was. And in that, the budget went up to, the level of collections went from 1% to 1.8%, and that has increased the budget for the state quite a bit. It changed the rules, which means that the regional areas, in Oregon there are 7 regions. We in Clackamas County are in 3 regions. And so now there's a lot more funds that go to those regions. And so with partnerships that we have, we're in the Portland region, which has gone from about $500,000 up to over $2 million. And so that means there are additional programming that needs to be dealt with. Also, the Hood Gorge region, which we are the fiscal agent for, has increased, and we have a staff person that's working in capacity really for that organization, but under our leadership. And that's what you see with the Regional Cooperative Tourism Program. That's the Travel Oregon, which has really increased. Last year, you might recall, we were here and had added 2 positions primarily for the work of that expanded program. And, well, they've got them together, Hood Gorge. The regional program is what we do with the other 2 regions. Hood Gorge is the actual fiduciary responsibility we have to the Hood Gorge region. And then the other 2, of course, the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, which Cheryl can speak to, and RACC, which is the Regional Arts Alliance, which you also give funding toward each year. And if need be, we also have a Representative Jeff in the audience from RACC. So I just give you that. And then our budget for tourism. Now, this is for the TRT. And what we're showing here is a 3-year trend. And it's a little complicated because we have money that comes in, and then what happens about 6 months into it or so, we get a true-up, which is where we get additional money because, and finance can explain this a whole lot better, it's too much in the weeds for me, but essentially they can release only so much of the money that they receive, and then after they do the auditing, then they get to receive the rest of that money, and it comes into our coffers to be expended. So when we project, we don't know what that number is going to be necessarily, and also the carry forwards affected. So you see up there for last year's budget, 17-18, that we had projected close to $6 million, and we actually brought in, the numbers are too small, $6.4 million. It's because of carryover and because we earned more money than what our projections were. And then our expenditures were not all of that. And they will go forward again in a forward balance. You only see 2 columns because we don't yet know until we're 6 months in or so what that their actual number will be. It's, knock on wood, it's always been more. I hope it would not be less. So that, I'm just trying to explain to you why our budget looks a little strange from that perspective. And how do we expend that? Well, you can see most of our funds obviously come from the transient room fund tax, but then part of it comes from the general fund that we pass on to the arts and culture. Some of it comes from the region, which we had noted has increased substantially. And as you can see across the way, most of our resources go back into materials and services. And then we have personal services, and from that, those are individuals that actually deliver the programs on the ground as well. They're actually the social media people or the on-air people or the sales people, which again is a little bit different from other organizations probably that you've encountered in the county budget so far. And we're not anticipating any changes, at least this year, for our full-time equivalents. So there's no news to report on that. And then how do we actually expend the money? I've mentioned to you about the Hood Gorge and the regional programs already. You can see just a tiny bit goes to RACC and the Arts Alliance. And oops. Did I already? I feel like I missed a slide. Maybe an earlier version had another slide in there that I don't see now. Oh, sorry. What I was going to mention is that, and I'll just do this here because I don't see the slide, is that our work is divided also into different departments within our organization. And we have tourism marketing and promotion, which I'm sure you kind of anticipate what that is. We do a lot of marketing, international, national, state, regional. We are very active out there, and we have really good results from that. The other area that we work with is development, and development works with communities and partners on developing infrastructure for tourism purposes. And also in that program, we offer $250,000 a year in tourism development grants that people can apply for, as well as in our community relations program, we have community partnership grants. Those go to our individual partner communities. 13 of those get $20,000 each to do other granting at the local levels. And we also have a $50,000 annual investment grant that we provide to heritage organizations for fixing their infrastructure. Say they need a new roof or they need a fire door or something like that. We have a fund that will help them with those expenses. So that's how we do that work. We have a very robust social media program, and I'm very excited about the results that we've been getting from those. And talking about results, tourism promotion and development by industry is a little challenging because it's, you're not developing widgets. It's an inspirational sort of thing, and it's hard to measure. Did that dollar invested there result in an overnight stay over here? A lot of times we can't say that, but we can look at our indicators, definitely see how our resources, how we're building our resources. We can tell on how many people are responding to social media and to our calls of action. So we do have mechanisms, but I just wanted to let you know that it's somewhat challenging sometimes in the industry itself because it's hard to measure people's behavior. We might, for instance, inspire somebody in Austin, Texas to come here with a billboard, or they think about us for the first time. It may take a couple of years to translate into a visit, or maybe a relative will come the next day. I mean, we have no way to know how those inspirations work. But we have been successful, and we do use a variety of sources. We have Google Analytics that I think can probably give you moment by moment. We utilize every resource that we have within our social media sphere to capture information. We also use Longwood's Performance Measurement, which is a firm that measures what is happening actually out there in our tourism arena, not just for us, but they do it nationally. We also use Smith Resources, which also measures overnight stays, ADR, which is kind of room, what do you get for room tax and how many people are staying, and what are the revenues from those that vary from time. So we have lots of measurement tools going on at all times. But the one that we like the best is the easiest one, and this is the one that Clackamas County itself collects, and that's our good friends from finance. Every year they collect the tax, and this is the stream that we've experienced since, well, I think Wilda's head is there, but 10, 11, okay, so the last 6, 8 years. We always are very conservative in our projections because, I don't know, you might have heard about wildfires in the gorge this past year. We're never very far away from a disaster that can really impact how tourism works. And sadly in Oregon, we experienced that. The Hood Gorge is really still suffering. Down south in Southern Oregon, a lot of suffering is going on there. You never know. So we try to be conservative. We always overshoot it, which I'm glad of, but I think that indicates that the work that we are doing is working. And this is just another one, destination spending. This is the amount of money that people spend here. Again, you can see the trend lines going up. People who are visiting our area from the work that in the tourism arena are spending over $107 million in this county. So that's just some of the numbers, and we've also, just as a quick note, we are putting out over $600,000, $650,000 in community partnership grants of some type or another, development grants. So we are putting money back out into the communities for their work and for their development. So, and from here, I wanted to turn over to Cheryl because she knows much more about her work, and then we can go on from there.
Thank you, Danielle. I'll begin by saying, for those of you not familiar with us, that the Clackamas County Arts Alliance is a 501c3 organization. We are independent of Clackamas County, but we work with tourism as our key strategic partner, one among many partners. And like all nonprofit organizations, we too are governed by a strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan in our case. Our mission is to keep arts and culture central to life in Clackamas County. And the ways that we do that are summarized in the 5 statements that you see on the screen. We primarily provide information, resources, outreach to promote and support development and the best practices of all of the arts, humanities, and culture in Clackamas County. And by that, I mean we work closely with all of our county's cultural organizations as a key resource, as a content provider, as an ally, and as a partner. We also administer programs and services that uniquely connect and facilitate skill-building opportunities for arts and culture practitioners. We didn't state this in this slide, but among those programs and services are our award-winning Youth Arts for Change program, in which we provide training in arts programming to disadvantaged and vulnerable youth, kids 12 to 18 years old, working with our partners here at the County Juvenile Department and at Parrot Creek Child and Family Services. Over the last 2 years, we've extended that program to provide prevention services for middle school youth. We're working closely with Todos Juntos, who serves the rural school communities in Canby and in Estacada. In addition to those specific programs that meet the needs of individuals and organizations, our organization provides leadership and advocacy that helps to increase public awareness of arts and culture as vehicles for achieving livable, distinctive, and economically sustainable communities. And among the many ways we do that, some of you present are familiar with the Arts and Economic Prosperity study that we spent a year developing out in the field, and we learned that nonprofit cultural organizations in this county contributed more than $15 million to the county's economy. We provide organizational structure and systems and strategies and the funding that we need to ensure that our organization is sound, solid, and stable so that we can operate efficiently and cost effectively. We coordinate operation of cultural activities and attractions with tourism to provide effective and targeted marketing of cultural experience opportunities to visitors and to residents, and that's the primary reason that we are linked so closely with tourism. As you noted from Danielle's presentation, one of the 3 pillars of the tourism strategic plan is arts and culture. The way that the county supports that is by investing in the Arts Alliance. So let's see, do I know how to do that?
It's
It's
forward
that
arrow.
one.
There you
Okay,
go.
thank you, sorry. So we provided for you the 3-year trend of how the county's general funds are spent in relationship to the operating budget of the Arts Alliance. On the bottom line that says $100,000 is general fund support that you provide to the Regional Arts and Culture Council. The upper yellow line is the general fund support that you provide to the Arts Alliance. And as you can see, the line has been steady and stable for the last 2 years, for the last year, this year, and moving into the next year. The Arts Alliance budget has increased nominally from last year to this year through direct grants and some carryover funding. We anticipate a fairly level budget, level to last year, into the ongoing next year, 18-19. And this slide shows you on the left side how the Clackamas County Arts Alliance's budget is arrayed. 43% of our annual operating budget is provided by general funds. 22% is earned income, 34% grants, individual donations were 1%, and that is growing as we have discovered through this current fiscal year. On the right-hand side, that pie chart shows how the Regional Arts and Culture Council invests the $100,000 that you supply back into the county. Work for Art is 15% of what the county general funds provide. That is a workplace giving program that benefits arts and culture, similar to a United Way fund. The county contribution is, actually, that should say the Arts Alliance is 20% of the of the funds that are provided to RACC go back to the Arts Alliance to support our operating costs. Right Brain Initiative is 27% of the budget that that is provided to RACC, and that is extremely important. The Right Brain Initiative is the RACC program that provides art education in county schools. Right Brain Initiative is a national award-winning program which could not be replicated on the local level. So thanks to RACC's regional engagement with arts education, we have been able to serve more than 5,700 students this last year in 16 Clackamas County schools. Again, this is really, really important because individually, any small organization like ours would not have the capacity to work within the schools the way Right Brain Initiative does. The balance of those funds, as you see, are technical assistance for organizations and artists. 32% of the $100,000 goes to that, and that helps to support the work that we do out in the field. Moving on, we selected 3 key performance measures to chart out here for you. On the left side of your screen, you see the work that we provide with training, information, and assistance to arts organizations. The left side, blue, is the actual for fiscal 16-17. Green is the target for this current year, 17-18. We are projecting higher than our target for the end of June 2018. And next year, the last bar in gray is our target for 18-19. So we have steadily been increasing the amount of training and information we provide in terms of actual numbers. This current year, we are expecting to reach 1,350 individual organizations and individuals. Next year, we are targeting 1,500. Our Youth Arts program, which I mentioned briefly earlier, has been exceedingly successful in a really difficult sphere. Working with kids who have been remanded to the juvenile justice system is challenging on every regard, but with the results that we've been receiving from our evaluative protocols, we and our partners, comprised of leaders and counselors that work in the field, are very, very pleased with the results that we've been receiving. This chart shows you the folks that we have served in Youth Arts for Change, starting in blue, last year's actual numbers. Green is our target for this year. We project a little bit higher than our target by the end of June, and next year, with a little bit of increased grant funding, we are expanding our target. RACC's Right Brain Initiative is what we are presenting to you here because, as I said a moment ago, this is, I think, the most critical piece of work that RACC provides in the county. Education to kids in the classroom, in schools in the county. Again, blue was last year's actual, green is the target for this year, yellow is what they expect to reach by the end of June, and a significant increase in kids reached next year with the inclusion of additional schools. So with that, I believe we are concluded. No, I'll pass that back to you.
I just wanted to briefly mention as well, thank you to Jody Carson of our board who is here. I think she's the only one that's otherwise, and I wanted to find out if Kirk, if there's anything you'd like to add. He was supposed to say something in the beginning and I just hopped right into it, so it's my fault. But is there anything you'd like to add? Okay, thank you. So unless there's questions, I think we've presented our
Yeah, I see that
materials
we
today.
do have a couple. I have one myself, but we'll start with Commissioner Schrader and then Commissioner Humberston.
I just want to thank you for all your hard work. It's been a pleasure working with all of you this year.
Is your microphone on?
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I'm just not talking into it. I'm sorry about that. Sorry. And what I've really appreciated the most is your analytics are absolutely phenomenal. And everything is charted. You've targeted specific areas. And since China's been on everybody's mind, we just got back. Is it true that China is one of our biggest visitors to this area? It seems to me I kind of remember a conversation about that. So I'm just wondering if you could comment on that, Danielle.
Yeah, Chair Parks and Commissioner Schrader, yes, it's very true. The Chinese visitor is increasing rapidly, not just in our area, but in Oregon. And I could get the exact numbers for you, but it's phenomenal. And they've outpaced pretty much everybody else. They also spend a lot more. They are the highest spending visitor that we have, which is something when people say, well, why do you try to attract people from international or national versus, they spend a heck of a lot of money. And so the nice thing about it too is that expense equals quality. And if you understand what that means, that the more expensive it is, the better quality it must be, so the one that they want to take back home with them. And so they don't blink an eye at the wine prices or whatever, because that is it's something they expect. And so they're a very good visitor for all of us.
And can you get us documentation on that, just so I have
Absolutely,
it? Because we
yes.
continue to work with Catherine Grubowski Johnson on export initiatives, and I want to make it clear we're talking about exports. We want to get our products over there, but I also think the tourism components is a key component of, as you said, the value that it brings back here, and if we can quantify that in particular, that would be really important. I also wanted to ask, because you have some other good news, it seems to me, and I know you've been working on this with everyone for a long time, and that is the heritage folks. I got an email the other day that it appears as if the U.S. park system they've kind of met the criteria to become the first national kind of heritage area monument west of the Mississippi. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? I may not have it correct, but I thought you could talk about that.
Thank you. I'd be happy to. For a number of years, more than a decade, many of us and Jody is one of the key players too, have been engaged with what is known as Willamette Falls Heritage Area Coalition, and our goal has been to have the Willamette Falls designated a national heritage area. You're correct in that I don't believe anything, or maybe there's one, exists west of the Mississippi. They all are on the East Coast, and it's an economic development tool that is a national parks designation. So you become a national park, national heritage area. With that comes some resources and a lot more publicity. And it literally takes an act of Congress to become one. So we have not yet had the act of Congress, but what we've been acting on for many years is to develop a feasibility study that demonstrates, yes, in fact, we have met the qualifications to become a national heritage area. And we've been rejected, I don't even know how many times. It's sad how many times we've been rejected. But the good news is that finally our national feasibility study has been accepted. We've been accepted as a national heritage area potential. But until the act of Congress happens, we are not one. So that's the sad news. Hopefully the act of Congress will help. I know a number of our delegation are working very diligently on that. So we're hoping so. We'd be the first to crack the nut because the East Coast has not given up easily on being the only area with heritage.
Yeah.
And
And
yet,
I appreciate you attending all those meetings. I
We've invested a
wanted
lot,
to,
yeah.
but I have I'm on our workforce board as well, and so I go to those, but I feel very comfortable knowing that you're there representing the county in the professional capacity to make this happen. And
Cheryl's there,
Cheryl
too.
as well.
Cheryl's there too.
Yeah,
if
that you're there. And again, the only reason I'm physically not there is because I do have a conflict with workforce. But when you know the people that are on the committee and you know how professional and the excellent work they do, you feel it's
I
all
will
good.
say that
Yeah.
while we are hopeful for an act of Congress to happen eventually, until that occurs, we have been and will continue to be acting like a heritage area in the
Yeah.
community. Good deal.
And that's where your comment, however, about how we manage this, because this is going to be a huge attractor to the area, and how we manage it sustainably is going to be, again, one of our goals and challenges. The other thing I wanted to mention and thank everyone's work on is the Unlock the Locks state group is together. Mayor Russ Axelrod is the chair of that group, and Sandy Carter and I are operating as vice chairs. And I think that the synergy of the heritage area with both the potential for access to the river and redevelopment on both sides of the Willamette by the Falls is going to be, again, a huge opportunity that we're going to depend on all of you and your professional staff to manage it very, very diligently. So.
Thank you.
And
That's
thank
an
you,
exciting
thank you for
one.
the work. I've never seen, I've always loved economic development, but the work you guys do and the visuals, and how you really track things has been great. And as Cheryl, you always know, I love the work that you do with our at-risk youth. That's always been one of our favorites too. So,
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. Appreciate that.
thank you. Anybody else?
Commissioner Humberson and then Commissioner Bernard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think the expression is nevertheless she persisted, and you can't retire until you get the act of Congress.
Not happening, no.
For those who are maybe paying attention online or on television or wherever, who like data points, I'll just point out a couple of things. One is that annual spending is over $500 million in Clackamas County from tourism. That's a major industry, $500 million. And then when you look at the chart from 2010 through present, and you see that the TRT income is a steady line upwards, it speaks to the efforts that you've made and how successful you have been. In the final analysis, the numbers matter. I have a couple of questions. One is, from what area is the bulk of your TRT generated?
Well, this is a question that comes up a lot, Commissioner Humbertston. And the answer,
why I asked it.
the answer is it's pretty evenly divided between our three. There's a sort of some take charge. So in our factoring, we look at what we call the mountain. And then we have the I-205 area, and then we have the I-5 area. And then we have the rural area, which is really like Malala and way, way out South County. That one doesn't really register much of a blip because we do not have a lot of facilities out there that collect lodging taxes. But between the mountain and the valley, or the mountain and I-5 and 205, they come up close to even, but the I-205 is generally the leader. We have more properties, and then of course in I-5, part of the issue there is we're divided between us and Washington County. So many of the hotels, for instance, in Wilsonville and whatnot, are actually Washington County hotels, and so that skews it a bit. And then we have the mountain, which has the resort and Sandy and Timberline and such. So it depends on the time of year, but roughly they're close. The mountain trails behind a bit from the other two, but not a lot.
Thank you. And the last question that I have is, I'm looking on page 11, and under grants, you show a 21.1% increase projected of $82,165. I'm just sort of curious as to how do you know you're going to get $82,165 more?
What page are you referring to? I'm sorry.
Page 11, top of the page, under local grants and revenues.
That we're going to get new.
21%.
Oh, thank you. Okay. It comes from Travel Oregon funds, the RCDP program, and from the Hood Gorge region. We call them grants, but they are not actually grants. They are the money that we receive from Travel Oregon for those programs, and I think they kind of show themselves in this format.
So you're assured of that income.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's always
That's all I have.
So mine is more of a couple of comments. One is that I'll never forget the time I was in a tourist place and they had two $5,000 purses. We laughed when we left. 5 minutes later, two Chinese girls came out with the purses.
About 5,000.
Yes. But my question is, because it seems like Paul hasn't asked his questions, you guys are getting off pretty easy. So I wondered if you or any member of your staff has been conspiring with the Russians.
Don't answer
Chair
that.
Bernard, would you put that
We
down,
thought
please?
about international
In fact,
tourism
you
to
should
there,
give it
but
to
have
me.
not
I'm not
pursued
sure
it,
we're
yes.
calling on you again. Thank you very much. Commissioner Savas also has a comment, but before that, I'll put mine up, down, it's up in my head anyhow. I do want to note that the importance of the import-export, us importing the tourism folks and exporting the information about Clackamas County. When the Economic Development Commission began its year of work this year, that was the first presentation we had, was about the import-export, about tourism in general and import-export being, wrapped into that. And we'll be studying that further, as this year goes by. So the Economic Development Commission will be talking about import-export. And I know also that in the past, you've done a lot of trade shows, both nationally and internationally, and we've always found that those provide great benefit in return for Clackamas County. Is that not correct?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We are international, and we focus our energies from Clackamas County in a few key areas, and then we work with partners like Travel Oregon and Travel Portland in areas that we either really don't have enough pull from there yet, or we don't have the capacity resources more than likely to be there, so they work with us. But we have a lot of influence and work that we're doing in Australia and New Zealand, particularly around skiing. It's very popular, and we're the staff, Casey and now Aaron and Samara, they're doing such a great job in that area that we've sort of taken it over for our partners, and we're the key player in Ski Shop and some of these things that are there. We still are in Canada, not as heavy as we have been in the past because their dollar has been a little weak to ours. We're looking at Mexico because Mexico is actually really increasing. We've talked about China. China's a bit big for us, so we're working with partnerships, and we look forward to the sister county relationship that might have some way for us to interact there because it is such a huge economy and very challenging culturally to engage with. And we primarily invest with our partners, Travel Oregon, Travel Portland, and it has shown really great benefits. They are wonderful tourists that bring in a lot more money, like I said, to our economy than many other partners do.
Yeah. And the transit occupancy tax, or TRT, transit room tax, has been mentioned 2 or 3 times, and, obviously it's a big part of your budget. But what I haven't heard mentioned is that the steady increase in that and almost doubling over a period of time. And during that time, no new lodging facilities were built. It's not because there are more places for people to stay. It's that more people are coming or they are staying longer in the area. Would that be correct?
That is correct. The one thing we are lacking are facilities and lodging in Clackamas County,
Right.
particularly in our rural areas. And so there's only so much capacity available, right? So if you start seeing an even line in our resources, it's because primarily we've run out of capacity. There are some hotels that are under consideration and in some work of development, which we hope someday will pan out, but you're correct. I'm quite proud of that little point because a lot of people can say, yeah, we increased our TRT, but they have more rooms or something going on.
Right.
We do not have that. It's coming out of our existing properties, which means that they're getting more productive or they're able to charge more for their rates or whatever. What's happening, for instance, in Washington County, which had I forget, like 2,000 rooms come on this last year. They're struggling with their rates because there's so much saturation and inventory that everybody's suffering a little bit and the rates are coming down. So it's not all fun and games necessarily if you get, these more properties, but we could use some, particularly in a number of areas in our rural partners.
And in
communities.
addition to hotels, motels, that type of thing, there's
Right, 'cause-
also Airbnb, vacation
That's-
rentals by owner, all of those
We're
types
not
of
actually collecting
things
those so much yet.
that generate tax that comes back to us, right? Yeah.
we're
Not
working
true. So we do get
Working on it,
camping,
okay.
Airbnb, those, I'm sorry, bed and breakfasts and those kinds of things. Right now, the county is in a bit of a scuffle, if you will, with Airbnb, and we are not collecting those.
Okay.
We hope to be. State law should take effect July 1, and hopefully we'll finally encourage them to pay their taxes.
And the last thing I wanted to mention is, if I understand correctly, your department has also won several awards recently, national, regional. What, can you just speak briefly to what
The
that's
most
all
recent
about?
award was the state award that we won in April for the best website in Oregon, and we hope to
Very
win that
nice.
nationally. We don't know. The jury is literally still out on that. So very proud of that. We have a great team, and they really are the front edge. And Dan Gehring on my team led the web redo, and it really shows. It's fantastic. Go to mounthoodterritory.com if you want to see it. The other really cool one that I'll mention that has to do with heritage is the Oregon 175th. We have a trail, 175th trail that my team has been working on that actually goes back to Missouri. And we have a trail itinerary that is moving its way from Missouri to Oregon, to the end of the Oregon Trail, which is here in Oregon City. And it's fantastic. I don't know that anybody's ever gone to these states and done this, but bravo to my team that did pull that together, particularly Casey. And it's exciting. Next week, the social influencers will be on a trip all the way through on the trail, and they're going to be riding from Missouri to Oregon about that. And he'll be working with them leading that. So it's very
It's
exciting.
fantastic. Good. Commissioner Savas?
Yep. Well, I was just reckoning back to the retreat we had up there at Hopkins. And you mentioned earlier adding sustainability, and that was part of the topic at the lunch that we had there. And I guess, in a way, lots of the parts of the county are doing really well, and some parts of the county or people in the county aren't doing so well. A lot of people moving here, being displaced, and so forth. And all to say that I guess maybe we're victims of our own success, and maybe Tom McCall would say he'd outlaw tourism in the state of Oregon, try to keep Oregon a secret, right? But that's my comment. But I do have one question. Just recent discussion regarding the RACC. The funds that the city of Portland, is that coming, their contributions from the arts tax?
I'm going to ask my colleague, Jeff Hawthorne, who is the interim ED of RACC, to respond.
Hi, Commissioner. I'm Jeff Hawthorne. I'm the Interim Executive Director of the Regional Arts and Culture Council. We receive funding from three sources at the City of Portland, about $4 million every year in general fund allocation. Then on top of that, about $3.5 million this year is our share of the proceeds from the city's arts tax. And then another $1 to $2 million a year in percent for art funds, depending on the capital construction projects of that year.
So is the city of Portland okay with the current composition of the group? I understand there was a recent article that came out that kind of questioned whether or not it should be I guess I'm reading between the lines that it maybe should be just a Portland-centric and not a regional.
It is a question that the Portland City Auditor is encouraging the Portland City Council to ask, because that they see that there's $6 or $7 million come from the city of Portland and $100,000 from Clackamas County. So they wonder if, in fact, the Regional Arts and Culture Council is regional in name only. But our point of view is that we take the funds that are available in any government jurisdiction that chooses to partner with us, and we leverage that funding and deliver more than any of those jurisdictions put into the system. So in Clackamas County, That's a $100,000 contribution from this body, which we return as almost $400,000 in cash and services to the programs that Cheryl's described. So they may be asking that question, but we don't see it changing anytime soon. We just have different relationships with each of the jurisdictions that we partner with.
And I know you're the incoming.
Interim.
Interim, okay, interim. So you inherited, I guess, the situation. So anything else you want to elaborate on? I was trying to understand what the main gist of the article was about.
I think the main finding of the city auditor's report, when the mayor asked the city auditor to evaluate the work of the Regional Arts and Culture Council, they were surprised to find out that that was difficult to do because the city of Portland did not have clear goals for arts and culture against which they could measure the work of the Regional Arts and Culture Council. I think if the city auditor came into this room and saw this presentation today, they would find great clarity with what you have in Clackamas County, which is that arts and culture are embedded in your tourism and cultural affairs department, and you've heard all of the goals and benchmarks that are being tracked in order to determine whether RACC is doing a good job of delivering the services that you expect from us. So it's kind of ironic that that situation does not exist in the city of Portland, but there you have it.
Because we're always better. We're always better. Yeah, I got him. Yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Was that all you had, Mr. Commissioner Savas? Thank you. Mr. Magdalene?
You got really close to answering the question I had. You talked about 3 buckets or 3 areas where your revenue comes from. Is that about equal in beds, available beds in those areas?
That's a really good question. It depends on how you equate beds because
Okay.
vacation rental homes might have 3 or 4 bedrooms with beds, and you have a hotelier with one bed. So it's I don't know. Do we have a breakdown like that? I'm not thinking that we have it broken down as far as the actual number. Obviously, in the area up in the mountain, there's a lot more camping facilities, and so those all count as do the rural. And there's not very many camping facilities on I-5, so it's just it's hard to say, and it's also seasonal. Winter, obviously, the mountain will do really well, hopefully, and maybe the rest of the area. Yeah, if there's no snow, then it's a problem. But so it depends on the time of year and what you don't really want to camp in December, but you're going to camp. You know what I mean? So
Not intentionally, anyway.
you hope you're not camping in December. You don't have to, but yes.
So we don't, but someday you will have a better understanding of the infrastructure necessary at the mountain. Versus, I mean, it's curious to me, and just to figure out. You got about almost a third is what you, and where's the bulk of the infrastructure or the higher capital assets go into it? Thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
and they're sort of hidden up in the mountain. You don't see them nearly as well because of all the vacation rentals that are just peppered throughout that area and the beds and breakfasts. And then you do have the Resort at the Mountain, which is one of our larger facilities, and Timberline and Sandy has Best Western and so forth. So there are facilities that you may not be aware of that are actually up there and up at Government Camp, but they really do need more up in the mountain, particularly when you look at the traffic issues there. But that is obviously way bigger than a bite that we can chew on by ourselves. So, yeah, we're hopeful.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions or comments from the members of the Budget Committee, we thank you very much for your
very
time.
much for the
your
opportunity.
information. Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Cheryl. Thank you,
Thank
Danielle. And thank you, volunteers and board members who serve. We appreciate it very much.